I like this example a lot. I think it's from one of the northern states where this boy was not able to hold the pencil because of fine motor, gross motor issues.
Mm.
So what the parents did, the mother, I think, took a potato, put the pencil, and gave the potato to the kid.
Mm.
The This child started holding the potato, and they slowly started peeling the potato
Mm.
day by day, and the kid was able to hold the pencil.
Mm.
Now, that parent, mother would have invented out of necessity for that kid. But I'm
Mm.
sure if this is available for somebody else, they don't need to go through the same journey,
Correct. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah.
right? So in a large campaigns, we need to make able to make ensure that the agency is with with the people.
Mm.
I know about expectation where we learned is the one of our first placements with the deaf. We
Mm.
placed the person. The company was very happy with the deaf, and first day he goes to work and he did well. The manager is very happy. Second day he doesn't go. The company manager calls us saying that why he has not come to us, why, what happened, anything wrong. Then we found out this guy is sitting at home and watching cricket match
Mm.
because he thought, oh, why should I mean, nobody told him that he has to inform. There's no expectation, right? So from childhood he was just, nobody isn't talking to at home because all the communication to him is eat, sleep. That's all, right?
Mm.
The parents are also not making communication because they don't know sign language. So there's no expectation, there's no conversation with deaf. So we build expectations, we prepare people to think beyond themselves.
Brilliant. Hi, Moses. Lovely connecting with you, and great to talk to you on the ContraMinds Super CMO show. Thanks for joining in and talking to us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Swami, for the opportunity and really looking forward for this conversation.
Thanks, Moses. So, Moses, I just wanted to jump into the conversation where, I wanted to talk to you about your own journey in, Enable India. But before that, can you talk to me about what Enable India does and
Absolutely.
what's the kind of societal impact and the purpose and mission that the organization has got today?
Absolutely. So very interesting. It's very close to my heart. So please keep me timed. In case if you need to.
Yeah.
So at Enable India, we work for economic independence and dignity of persons with disabilities, and our work impacts across 19 disabilities. That's range from visually impaired, persons who are deaf, and persons with physical disabilities, and people in the autism spectrum, intellectual disabilities, multiple disabilities like profound disabilities like dark blindness, and so on and so forth. And our work also impacts across both urban and rural landscapes. In the rural landscape, it's more on the livelihoods, self-employment, all of that. In the urban livelihood, urban spaces, I think it's more with the open wage employment. We are considered as a thought leaders in the livelihood space. In fact, somebody told us, we are one of the pioneers in opening up jobs for persons with disabilities in the open wage employment. What do we mean by opening up a job? For example, when I was growing up, people told me as a visually impaired, you can be a teacher, school teacher, a lecturer, or a music teacher. But today, people with disabilities work across 300 plus job roles, 29 sectors. So the Enable India has played a very pivotal role in opening up these choices for persons with disabilities. And when we say opening up, what we mean by that is that making the job, um, friendly or can be done by people with disabilities. I'll give you an example to just illustrate what is opening up a job. Uh, I think in 2004, very early when we started in 1999, and
Okay.
EnAble India founded by Shanti Raghavan and Deepesh Sitaria, both US written. Um, and I'll tell you their story why they started, but let me just complete illustration about what is opening up a job. 2004, there's a petrol, car station company that approached us and said we want to hire persons with disabilities. We said, well, I mean, why not? Why don't you look at hiring people with, say, different disabilities like visually impaired and all that? They said, no, no, our job involves filling the petrol at a petrol station. You know, so that requires you to see the board. I mean, the digital board and find out where the inlet is and then putting the fuel correctly and all that. So we said,
Yeah.
well, yeah, why not? Why don't you hire persons with hearing impairment, deaf?
Mm.
People said, oh, but how do they communicate? Then we realized when we talked to them, we realized that we don't talk about national politics or demonetization or GST or anything that kind of things at a petrol station. All that the conversation is around what does customer want, whether customer want petrol or diesel or gas, how much and how would they like to pay, card, cash, whatever. So this is the communication. So we said, okay, well, that's the communication. We co-created a solution with the company saying that it's a wipeable board which says I'm a person with hearing impairment. Please indicate your choice. Right? The deaf would go to a customer and say, please indicate your choice. And it's also in pictures so that even if the driver is not literate, then they can see the picture. Okay, I want petrol, diesel, whatever. And I would like to pay cash, card, how much, 500. Work is done. So the job,
Mm.
which is otherwise not possible for a deaf to do, is opened up because of this solution. So this is what
Mm.
we
Mm.
call opening up jobs, right?
Okay. Okay.
And this is what we do at EnAble India. Of course, today as an organization, we are focusing on, we are in a mission mode to make sure that livelihood for persons with disabilities is mainstreamed. We work on in the mission in collectives because we believe that we as an organization cannot do this work alone, and the problem is so huge. So we need all the actors, all the players in the in the sector to come together. So we run different collectives in for different disabilities. For example, there's a CMO, which is a mission to transform visually impaired into active citizens and nation builders through digital empowerment. This is for visually impaired. Similarly, we have a for Hear a Million in the space of deaf. We have something coming up, something called Rise a Million in the space of cerebral palsy. We have Mission 1000 in the space of intellectual and severe disabilities. So we work in collectives, and this is what we do. And as I said, Enable India started by Shanti and Deepesh because of because of their own personal journey. When they were in US, both software engineers. When they were in US, they learned Shanti's brother started growing blind in India. So that time, his name is Hari, and he was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa. That time
Mhm.
he was studying in, I think, BCom. So they both Shanti and Deepesh took him to US during the vacation, learned how to enable a person with vision impairment on working on computer mobility and all that. And eventually they came back to India, and that's when and they settled in Bangalore because both came back to India with their IT jobs, and so that's Bangalore being the IT hub. So they came back to Bangalore and said, how do we use this knowledge that we gained to enable Hari, and why don't we use this knowledge to enable other brothers and sisters in India? That's
Mm.
how over a tea table, I mean, Enable India was formed in 1999. And what they realized very initially was education is important, rehabilitation is important, but one thing that's a game changer is livelihoods. Because when the first paycheck comes to home,
Mm.
that's when the shift happens, right? Because you suddenly will become part of the conversations in the family financial decisions and everything. So I could see that in my own life, and that change before becoming independent and after becoming economically independent. So we, both Deepesh and Shanti realized it's important to focus on livelihoods, and that's how Enable India was formed. But today we, as a building ecosystem for livelihoods. So we work in the mission campaign approach, mission approach. We work with different stakeholders in the value chain, but our core focus is on the livelihoods.
Fantastic, fantastic. It's a very inspirational story. Not just the founders creating an organization like this, but somebody like you today. You've moved to the board of the organization, and you are a trustee in the organization.
Absolutely.
So, what's your story, Moses? So, how did it
Yeah.
all begin? And therefore, your personal story is something that can be interesting for our audience.
Absolutely. So I acquired vision impairment by birth,
Mhm.
and so obviously, like any other family, so family turned to every church and every place that they could get to, um, for making sure that I get the help. Went to hospitals, but I think it's a combo offer that I have. It's a glaucoma and cornea dystrophy,
Mhm.
and three surgeries. Anyway, to cut the long story, that I was diagnosed with cornea dystrophy and glaucoma, and the doctor said, "You all that you can do is to retain your vision, little vision that you have in your left. I don't have any vision in my right eye. That's the condition." When I was growing up, one of the things that made my one of the impressions on my mind very early on is about reading.
Mhm.
So, like many millions of Indians, I'm also a great fan of cricket. And those days, we at my home did not have a television. So, the
Mhm.
only source of information, I mean, I did not even access to radio.
Mhm.
Only source of information was newspaper.
Mhm.
So when the newspaper comes to home in the morning, I almost used to run to catch it
Mhm.
from the delivery boy's hand and
Okay.
run to my mother, say that please read the newspaper to me.
Mhm.
She used to look at me and said, "Well, I'll read newspaper for you, no problem. But do you want me to cook or read newspaper?"
Mm.
And as a hungry child, I don't think I could ever tell her, okay, read newspaper. I always wanted to tell her, read newspaper, but I always told her, no, cook. Um, so that used to frustrate me because I used to go to school. Once I come back from the school after studies, once my mother is done with her housework, is when she used to read me newspaper. What we
Mhm.
used to be on my mind at that time was, why am I reading the outdated paper? Because already, if I'm following a test match, obviously even the next day play would have been over.
Mm.
I'm actually reading the previous day's newspaper. Um, and to add to that, as a kid growing up, my sister happens to be a sighted, and she used to read the moment paper comes. She used to read her movie news that she wants to see. So that
Mm.
used to irritate me much further. Like, why not me? Why she's able to read? I'm not able to read.
Mm.
Of course, today I'm able to say this with fun, but that used to weigh me down.
Mm.
The frustration of not able to do something when I want. So to cut the long story, so I finished my 10th standard, went to I grew up in Vijayawada, so went to Andhra Lala College, took up HEC, History, Economic, Civics background, and stood first in the state first in the general category, not in the visually impaired or anything or persons
Mm.
with disability. Then took up BA in English literature, and this all happening with friends and families help, reading out and all that. Went to do masters in one of the prestigious central universities in Hyderabad,
Mm.
and that's where I had a tipping point, the turning point,
Mhm.
because we were asked to read Vikram Seth's Suitable Boy.
Okay.
And it's a very bulky book. I mean, it's very good, but very, very, very bulky book. And we used to use this book to kill mosquitoes in the hostel room. Very
Mm.
effective. Um, Nobody could read that to me. Not because friends did not want to help me. Humanly impossible for somebody to read it out in a short span, right? So I couldn't go to class, Swami. So that's when and that hit me very hard, saying that what am I doing? Why am I not able to do things when I want to do things? and I was living on a 1,000+ acres campus.
Mm-hmm.
I had all access to all amenities that one can ask for, but never able to use any of those facilities because all that I was doing was aligning my schedule to my friend's schedule so that I can have somebody to read out books to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that, you know, really, I was almost reaching a borderline of the depression, saying that why am I not able to do? And I called up one of my cousins who happens to be in Bangalore at that time, working as a software engineer, and said, I heard this that the people with vision impairment can work on computer. Where can I learn?
Mm-hmm.
And then he found Enable India. During my first year vacation of my master's, I came to Enable India, learned computers, and I think that has changed my life because I say computers are eyes for blind, because what I couldn't do in a paper environment, and today being in a paperless office environment, I'm able to do things. I do my financial management, investments. I do my travel. So my wife and I are raising 1 year child. So she's a sighted, but I take equally keen in ordering things on online, doing things so that I don't become a burden on spouse, right? Because otherwise, if she has to do everything, it will be perceived as a burden, right? So I
Correct,
mean,
correct.
because if it is a relationship, it has to be equal
Mm.
relationship, and I'm as much as responsible like her for to raise my child. So I really take pride in doing things independently, taking part in social gathering, to doing my booking my own travel, doing things, financial investments. All that is possible because of learning computers, and that's how I landed up at Enable India. And one conversation that I overheard at Enable India hooked me into the culture, saying that this is the place I want to work.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went there to learn computers, I was overhearing this conversation between an employment officer and a candidate with vision impairment. And this candidate with vision impairment was saying, I have an offer from one small company, and I'm also expecting another offer from an MNC. Once both those that offer also get released, I will take a decision on which company I will join.
Mm.
And this contrasting to my own life, where I was always hearing that music is only option for persons with vision impairment,
Mm.
it hit me like a boulder, saying,
Mm.
what? Here are people talking about choices.
Mm.
And I think this is the place that I want to be in. So I went back and did my masters, and then eventually I wrote a mail to Shanti, the founder of Enable India, saying that I want to work, and I
Mm.
explained why I want to work for the sector, and that's how I landed as an intern at Enable India. It's been 14 years, incredible journey. I did multiple things. I used to teach English for visually impaired, then taught computers for blind, and then worked on employment and open up jobs. I actually built something called CM Million, a campaign that I spoke about earlier in the
Mhm.
space of vision impairment. Then now working as executive director, taking care of urban livelihood mission. I really couldn't have asked better than this, and it's an incredible journey.
Inspirational.
Yeah,
Amazing, amazing story, Moses. I think really, a story that can inspire many. So one of the things that when you talk about Enable India,
yeah,
and when you say you've run campaigns like the See a Million, Hear a Million,
yeah,
1,000 opportunities, 1,000 lives, 1,000 days. So
correct.
you run many campaigns, and that's something that I was really fascinated by. So when you really are talking about the problem at the scale that you're talking, right, which is,
Correct.
there are almost like a billion people with disabilities across the world,
Correct.
and in India you got about 100 million people with disability. So
Absolutely.
therefore, given the scale of this problem, how do you approach a marketing problem like this? Because you are running this whole thing on scale. So how do you break it down, and how is this marketing very different from the traditional marketing that
Absolutely.
you see outside? So how do you see it as a difference?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question. So, to just put in the perspective that the scale that you're talking about, right? So, the WHO estimates about 15% of the population are having some form of the disability in countries like India. So that if we take that and put it in perspective, it's actually larger than Australia, the population of Australia and UK and all of that. So we are dealing with such large, and there is a lot of diversity in when we talk about disability. It's not that all visually impaired, all deaf. Based on our affinity, maybe when we think about disability, maybe one or two things will come to our mind, but there are 21 disabilities.
Mm,
So it's
mm,
huge.
mm,
And so the challenge is also about, it's not about the disability itself, but the consequences of disability. For
mm,
example, as an industry,
mm,
we are still at a stage where perhaps health industry was about, say, 300, 500 years ago, or
mm,
which is that not organized, perhaps. There is no abundance. For example, in, say, in 16th century, perhaps everybody who's wearing specs today can be considered as a visually impaired, because they
mm.
simply did not have access to specs,
Correct.
maybe in 14th century, right? So um, but today the wear class industry is huge.
Mm,
There is availability, there is abundance, the people have choices. How that happened? Because of availability and abundance. There are many actors came into the picture. There are a lot of professions emerged. There are opticians, there are people who ophthalmologists anyway. So technicians have come. Then the design, fashion industry came in and said, oh, it's no longer just about wearing
correct.
specs, but they have to be stylish and so on and so forth. So if you take that parallelly, right, like for example, like compare that with disability today, maybe the industry, there's so much need, but I think the resources, the availability of resources is not available, or even if
Mm,
they're available, people don't know where they
mm,
are and things
mm,
like that. So that's the real challenge that we need to work on. So
mm,
because it's the problem is so big and so deep,
mm.
the only way that we can actually make progress is working in collectives.
Okay. So what's a
Because
collective?
yeah,
What's a
collective,
collective?
absolutely. So like a see a million or a hear a million coming together, right? Like,
Mm,
because everybody matters, every contribution matters. So
mm,
we need to design a way so
mm,
that every person, a small organization, big organization, or an individual can also contribute towards that larger goal,
mm.
right? Only then we will be able to make progress in to handle the problems like this, right? So that's why the collective approach in the first place.
So
And
how do you look at a collective campaign in Enable India? So how do you bring it together and how do you scale it? Because like a typical not-for-profit, you are always resource crunched. So therefore,
absolutely,
you don't have enough resources to do the marketing. So
yeah,
therefore, at one end, let me break down the problem. You got
correct,
to reach out to people who are visually impaired, which is your audience that we are talking. Then
sure,
you got a stakeholder who has to provide them with opportunities, and
absolutely,
then you need donors to actually go back and then say, hey, I want to support a campaign like this. So how do you
absolutely.
bring all of them together, and how do you kind of organize a campaign like this?
Absolutely. I think the first thing we at Enable India learned to to set the narrative right, we first of all need to have a positive language,
Mm,
because language builds culture, and
mm,
that's something that I have seen in my own working experience, how language actually matters.
mm,
So one of the things that Enable India has always done is, as a contribution to the disability sector, is to actually revolutionize this language, change the language that has been used.
mhm,
um, I'll give one example. uh, where I spoke about workplace solutions to open up job.
mm,
Generally, that solutions, giving solutions, is called as reasonable accommodations in developing nations,
mm,
right? Developed nations like countries like US, UK, and all that. People call it reasonable accommodation. That was okay in that context because it's just an accommodation. People do understand what it means, but bring it in the context like India, growing economy like India, and when you tell a company to say, "Hey, you have to provide a reasonable accommodation,"
mm,
what happens in the people's mind is that, okay, I'm making some accommodations to include persons with
mm,
disability.
mm.
The reasonable may not have the weightage, but it's about I'm making an accommodation. That means I'm making something, I'm adjusting, or I'm making a
Correct.
small change
Mm,
so that to
mm.
include. So that means that I'm doing something extra.
Yeah, or almost
So
saying that it's almost like I'm doing a favor.
favor, right? So, but it's what are they doing? It's all about giving the solution. For example, you and I today are able to have this conversation because we are using the solution called chair to sit.
Yeah.
You and I are using internet, recording studio to communicate. I'm not shouting from here to, I'm in Bangalore, you are in Bombay. I'm not talking to you, shouting or troop of my, using my voice, right?
Correct.
So you're using a solution. So we actually said it's about workplace solutions.
Mm,
So when we say with persons with disability, in my case, say visually impaired can work on computer using screen reader, which is a workplace solution.
mm,
So number one, I think to bring to work in a large collectives, we need to set the narrative using the positive language,
mm,
right? That's why we use persons with disability, not differently abled or any of those things, because I think it's important to use the positive language.
mm,
Number two, I think the shared vision has to
mm,
be co-created.
mm,
It's not that somebody is telling us to do something.
mm,
And the co-creation, for example, in CML and HereML, this vision, this mission, when we created, all these missions are created, co-created with the stakeholders. That
okay.
organizations coming together, sitting down and say what is that we want to do,
Mm,
and can we all rise above our own work? Can we think
mm,
about beyond, say, as an organization, beyond Enable India, somebody else beyond their organization? Can we look at, you know, can we do something more than just doing what we have been able to do?
mm,
That happens only when we co-create the vision together,
mm,
right?
mm,
I think that's the second part that I learned, that co-creation is important. I
mm,
think the third thing is having agency, because we can only build, as you rightly mentioned, build a campaign, build a brand for the mission
mm,
only when you give agency to everyone in the ecosystem.
mm,
What do I mean by giving agency, right? What they can contribute, not just viewing them as somebody who's consumers, but give them a role where they can contribute. For example, we have a very interesting program called Project Discovery,
mm,
which is so we realize that persons with disabilities actually use solutions every day,
mm,
uh, and these solutions are not necessarily always very high tech solutions.
mm,
And we realized this in a very very interesting conversation once with group of visually impaired. Once my
mm,
co-founder Deepesh was talking to visually impaired group of people and said like, hey, in an Indian context, we all keep our toothbrush together, right? Like,
mm,
at family. So how do you pick up your, being visually impaired, your toothbrush? Because sighted would see green color, red color, and they pick up and start brushing.
mm,
How do you pick up? So then there are a group of, engineers were there. They were like, oh, maybe there has to be color recognizer and all that. One hand went up from the visually impaired committee and they said, I just do a scratch on bottom of my toothbrush and put it there.
mm,
Then I feel that scratch and pick it up. Somebody else said I put the rubber band and pick it up and things like that. So we realized that there are solutions everywhere. And in
mm,
fact, the following question was about how do you put the toothpaste on the toothbrush?
mm,
And again, one went hand up. They said, no, I don't align it on the toothbrush. I take the paste into my mouth and start brushing with my
mm,
brush.
mm,
Because it's
mm.
about brushing. It's not about really
Correct.
putting the thing on the toothbrush.
Correct.
So
Correct.
what we learned is that it's important. There are solutions and we need to really understand. So, uh, we launched this campaign called Project Discovery, project program called Project Discovery, where we said you are a person with disability or a caregiver or a rehabilitation specialist, educationalist. You keep innovating a lot of solutions on your day-to-day basis. Make a 2-minute video of your solution and send it. And the quality is
Okay.
not important. The quality of the video is not important. The solution is important. And for last 3-4 years, we are doing this video competition. Today, we have about 3,000 plus videos available.
Mm,
Why I'm talking about this? Because this is what is giving agency to people.
mm,
in a campaign, in a mission mode, when you want to make a large change,
mm,
where everybody should feel that they are contributors,
mm, mm,
they exercise their
mm,
agency and
mm,
provide. So it maybe that maybe what they are doing may think that, oh, I am just doing because out of my need. I'll tell you another solution that came
mm,
in this competition, and I like this example a lot. I think it's from one of the northern states where this boy was not able to hold the pencil because of fine motor, gross motor issues.
mm,
So what the parents did, the mother, I think, took a potato, put the pencil, and gave the potato to the kid.
mm,
The this child started holding the potato, and they slowly started peeling the potato
mm,
day by day, and the kid was able to hold the pencil.
mm.
Now, that parent, mother, would have invented out of necessity for that kid. But I'm
Mm.
sure if this is available for somebody else, they don't need to go through the same journey,
Correct. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah.
right? So in a large campaigns, we need to make able to make ensure that the agency is with with the people.
Mm,
So we spoke about language, we spoke about co-creation, we spoke about giving agency to people,
mm,
and then it's about having the space for having a dialogue, review, and anything that we do is about constant communication. So
yeah.
this is how we build um, large campaigns,
Mm.
and of course work with the stakeholders. So I hope that I answered your question.
No, it's a beautiful example of how how you empower the stakeholders
Yeah,
to just get involved, and that's a learning that every marketing department can take an example out of this, because you're actually talking about co-creation, you're talking about building empowerment to people who are involved. And I think
absolutely.
this is something that can be taken by any brand wanting to do marketing, but this really is a very, very powerful example. And therefore, how do you build the groundswell for this? Because, for example,
Mhm.
you need awareness with the visually impaired or the people with disability. They should know about this. Okay. The
Correct.
second one is you also run something like an enable academy, right, where
Correct.
you kind of train them. So talk to me about the enable academy, because you're then preparing people for the empowerment opportunities, right? So therefore you're building an ecosystem for this, and that itself is a campaign, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a brilliant question. How do we reach the unreached, right? Because we may have this very good campaign, but how do we get this word to the last mile, and how do people know something like this happening, right? So,
Mm,
before I touch upon how what we do on Enable Academy, we have another platform called Enable Vani.
mm,
So again, we realize that Enable Vani is this very simple technology that works on the feature phone. The smartphone is not required. It's actually a social media networking platform that works with and without internet.
okay.
So people can actually dial a number and get connected to this IVR system, and people can listen to different audios of people, the information about different jobs or stories and all that. And people can also say, hey, I have a similar story I want to share, and they can
Mm,
press 3 or 2 or whatever, and then record their story, and that comes to us for moderation. And if we
mm,
see that story is authentic, that information is authentic, and that also goes onto the platform.
mm,
So, and this is a community platform,
mm,
a moderated
mm,
community platform. So, in 2000, I think it's about 15, 16, we started in Karnataka called Nammavani.
mm.
Nammavani means my voice.
Correct.
So we said, maybe we'll be able to reach about 1,000 people in a year or something like that. We were thinking, because we were also trying to understand the power of community networks.
Correct.
But we shocked to see, no time we've reached 5,000 calls. And then what we realized is there is one guy who said, I want a job in North Karnataka. I'm a visually impaired and want a job in North Karnataka. Another person put a message saying that I run a shop. I'm a person with
Mm.
disability. I run a shop in, Northern Karnataka, Hukliya somewhere, and
Amazing.
I am looking for somebody who can work for me.
Mm,
Then we realized this is the power of the community platform to just pass the information, um, to the grassroots community.
mm,
Today, I think it's about 98% of the content that comes on Enable Vani is generated by users. And today we have in four languages,
mm,
Kannada, Tamil, Hindi, and Bengali.
mm,
Why I was saying about this example of having a community network at a grassroots level is important, because that's how we kind of spread the information, and not
mm,
about our just information. People actually, a lot of things come. People actually, and we what we have done is that we have used a concept of star user, recognizing users who contribute regularly, recognize them every month. These are the star users. Let's just
mm,
call out their names and all that. And that incentive, Swami, what it did is created a sense of belonging for people. We
mm,
started seeing people taking pride in contributing to the platform. So
mm,
when we create such platforms where users take a lead, and
mm.
users feel a sense of urgency, sense of need, sense of pride in contributing back, then we don't have this information gap.
Correct.
That's
So
how we are able to spread information,
brilliant.
about it.
So
I mean,
therefore, how do you build your, how do you reach the unreached? You're talking about, Enable Vani as a community network where
absolutely.
it creates user generated content. And in marketing world, we talk about it as UGC, but you
Yes,
are building it as user generated content in your, community networks, and therefore you reach the unreached, and that's really how you build the pull from the people who need a support,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. And when people are seeing value in coming, because what we saw is that there are people who will not complete their day unless they log in at least three times onto the
Mm,
platform. A lot of people
mm,
asked me, Moses, but how do you ensure that it's always up and running? I said, yeah,
mm,
well, we don't need to think about technical solutions, because there are communities always watching out. Even
mm,
if the platform is down for a minute, we
mm,
will get to know, because the community is actually, because the people are waiting to log into the platform, right? So
mm.
when you created that sense of belongingness, I think, a lot of monitoring evaluation that we traditional way that we talk about can be taken care, but
So
fully giving the control. Yeah,
okay, so therefore, to reach the unreached, you built a community network to
correct.
attract them into, into your, into your fold, right?
Absolutely.
Now, how do you attract the ones who want to give these, people with, disabilities the opportunity and empower? So, how do you reach out to them through campaigns?
Absolutely. I think again that's a very interesting question. But nothing, like succeed like success, right? So one of the things when we talk about employers, what we did very early is that we built something called business case. So we
Okay.
went to corporate saying that you only hire persons with disability if it makes your business sense,
Hmm.
and we tell you how it's important and it's imperative for your business to hire persons with disabilities.
Hmm.
Over the years, we kind of we evolved a business case where we talk about how your own leadership quotient will, your ability to solve problems will increase if you have
Hmm.
persons with disabilities in your team. Your team morale will go up. You will have access to an alternate pool of suitable candidates, because otherwise you are not looking at persons with disabilities as a potential pool, but
Hmm.
suddenly now when you tap into that, you will have a talent pool there, and so on and so forth. So we created a business proposition at the first place.
Hmm.
Second thing that what we realized is we always have to understand the challenge from their perspective.
Hmm.
See, I think people, even today, there's a lot more work to be done. There are a lot of more companies can hire, a lot more work to be done. It's not that companies are not hiring because they don't want to hire persons with disability. It's just that they don't know how to include.
Hmm.
So when you think from their perspective, what is the things that can go wrong?
Hmm.
In our workshops, we talk about actually very, and this is innovation by Shanti.
Hmm.
When we talk about disability, a lot of times, we can talk about so many technical details and all that. People get scared because people are not able to visualize, hey, I, as an individual who have eyesight, cannot do things without eyesight. How will
mm,
this person who has no eyesight can do these things?
mm,
Obviously, people will not be able to visualize. So,
mm.
what we have done is that demystifying disability is very important in the terms that is relatable to people. So, in
Okay.
our workshop, we actually talk about disability as an ability and inability.
Mm,
And today, if I ask you what is your inability, for example, your inability can be swimming or cooking, or in my case, singing. For example, I can't sing in my own bathroom.
mm,
So it's just my inability.
mm,
But I have some other abilities.
mm,
And how do we overcome some of our inabilities? Using solution. For example, we don't climb up, 50th, 54th floor by steps
mm,
because we have inability of going up that height. So we use elevator as a solution.
mm,
If I had to come to you and meet you in Bombay, I can't fly like a bird.
mm,
That's my inability. But I can use a plane to fly. So
mm,
that's a solution. So we understood the problem from the employer side,
mm.
how deep it is. It's about, when nobody has exposure, that's in for them it's a disability. What can person with disability do? Because they are not able to visualize. If they can't hear, they can't speak, or they can't see, they can't even walk for a minute, they're not able to visualize their life. But here is somebody with a disability has overcome the challenge, or have solution to overcome the challenge, have had the journey. It's not overnight.
Correct.
The person is ready for working or doing things. So we designed our awareness programs, our engagement, from the understanding from the perspective of employer. So that's why we have a very nuanced approach to to rally people, to bring people, or outreach for the employers. The nuanced is, for example, we also not only just do awareness for top leaders, or hiring people. We also conduct workshops for peers, because they have to work with persons with disability day in and day out, and their understanding of disability has to be very different from a hiring or a CEO level, or a hiring boss, or whatever, right? So, and we actually created a term called includability, ability
Mm,
to includability. Again, this word is coined by Shanti at Enable
mm,
India. So, which is about, we realize that ability to include is no longer just a it's not having awareness. It's actually a skill. It requires competency, and it requires knowledge,
mm,
right? So we created that word, and we actually run programs for leaders to become includable, and so on and so forth. So in short, what you asked: build a business case, understood the problem from their perspective, and created a interventions at multiple levels, and that can be consumed in a small bite size as well. So this is how we work with the employers.
Very interesting. So, I want to summarize what you said in a couple of what you're saying. So, what you do really is build the, build the groundswell in corporates
Yeah,
by building awareness with people with abilities about their disabilities,
correct.
right?
Yeah, abilities
So,
and yeah, inabilities. Yeah.
yeah. So therefore, that's how you build the momentum there. How do you identify
Therefore, the
the?
relatability gets built, right? Because then we say, hey, like you have inabilities, persons with
Yeah,
disabilities,
I love
perhaps.
I
Yeah,
love the inability and the ability comparison. I think it's a beautiful way of making it relevant, and it's a communication language, or it's a marketing language where people can relate it to, right? Relate
absolutely.
The relatability is very high.
Yeah.
How do you identify the stakeholders in a corporate? Because you got a CEO, you got a hiring team, you got a peer. So therefore, how do you really reach out to these corporates? Because you need a massive amount of reaching out capability in terms of doing these workshops, right?
Yeah, so that's where I think actually, today reaching out to companies is not a problem, because when you build a brand, or when you build a mission brand like disability cause, um, and people are coming for, like, actually we don't reach out to companies that proactively to say, okay, we want to work with you.
Hmm.
Somehow people are seeing what's happening with company. Because initially when we placed people with disabilities, even now we will only ask company to hire if they feel absolutely that candidate is fit. So
mm,
therefore your candidates are your brand ambassadors.
mm,
So
mm,
their work speaks for the quality of, therefore companies come forward. Today, actually, interestingly, we have a problem of more demand. Of course, there's a lot more to be done. I'm not saying that every company is ready to hire, but there is a lot more demand than the readiness of the supply itself. Because today I battle not having enough people who are suitable to get into the corporates.
mm,
That's because of not the capability issues, about awareness and access and multiple other things. So capability may be there, but access need to be there, and awareness about this has to be there, so that so there is more on the supply side than the corporate. So to answer your question, I think it's about really building that mission brand out there, and all your candidates as your brand ambassadors. You don't have a problem of going and convincing companies to hire persons with disability. Where it
mm.
becomes intensive is to work with each company to say, how they go through the life cycle. And you asked a question about how do we reach out to whom do we reach out to people, I mean, in
Mm,
the corporate, because there are multiple layers. I think that depends on the life cycle where they are today. For example,
okay.
some start with, and we always say, if you are a new company, and I personally, for example, um, encourage companies to start with volunteering,
Mm,
because that's a beautiful way of starting. Because when you say go and do a trekking with visually impaired, or watch a movie with visually impaired, or go out and do something with deaf, you are interacting with community in a non-threatening environment. You are not
mm,
sitting and thinking, oh my God, I have to hire this person and I have to make that person work. And it's a client interfacing role and I have a time sensitive targets, and you're scared already. But
mm,
in a non-threatening environment, you are going for a movie, and your role is maybe to go out with that visually impaired to explain the movie, wherever there is no description, only visuals are there. You are in a chilled environment. I mean, you're talking
mm,
nicely, and you will build that comfort, and you will learn more about that person. In the beginning, maybe you will see, oh my God, when I meet Moses, he's visually impaired. How will I talk? But when you start talking to me, when you start interacting with me, you will learn. I like sports. I'm learning golf, and I'm a foodie, and so the dominant story about disability will start going down, and you'll start learning about me as an individual.
yeah,
So we tell companies to start as a volunteering, and
beautiful.
then based on their where they are in their life cycle. For example, their immediate hiring need, then we could go for hiring. Some companies say, no, we want to first systematically work on the sensitization. Let's do that. So all of that.
Fantastic. So the point that you made, I'm kind of moving there, which is to say, how do you prepare people
Yes,
uh, 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 for these opportunities is key, and that's where your Enable Academy
absolutely.
probably comes in. And therefore, how and what do you do there? Because I can see that there are lots of tools and resources that you have built for people to get competent in those areas.
Absolutely.
So how do
Yes.
you build this? Talk to me about the Enable Academy and what happens to people, and how do you transform these people.
Absolutely. I think that's an important thing. So, one of the first things that we do in transforming persons with disability, we start with a very, very simple thing called expectation.
Hmm.
Right? When I was growing up, Swami, when I was this one, and people used to come to my house, relatives and all that, when they used to ask my sister, hey, what will you become when you grow up?
Hmm.
But I never heard that question to me.
Hmm.
Why? Because people are saying, "Oh, Moses is here. Maybe already going through the lot of medical interventions. There is no expectation from me.
Hmm.
It's not that they don't want me to succeed in life, but people are genuinely concerned. He's going through operations and this and that and all that. Will I ask him what will he become in the future? That's not the question.
Hmm.
So, what does that do to a
Hmm.
visually impaired or a person with disability?
Hmm.
When you have a sibling who is constantly sent to, say, to the neighbor store in the neighborhood to get something, you are not going there. You are not getting that opportunity. What it does is that you will slowly miss those life experiences of going out and buying that bread and coming back, and in the process you ask for a change, take change, whatever that
mm,
whole transaction experience you're losing.
mm,
Therefore, there's a threat that sometimes persons with disabilities can, in that self prison where they themselves start seeing themselves as somebody who needs help.
perfect.
So we need to first break that chain. We at
Mm,
Enable India and with our partners, what we do is that we first, when they come to us, we ask them to form the rules.
mm,
And we say that, including trainers, will follow that rules. What does it mean? That we are telling them, we expect you to form the rules.
mm,
We expect you to control the training.
mm,
So our enablement with candidates starts with expectations. That's the
okay.
first step. Then, interestingly, what we do, and some of the building blocks that I will talk about,
Mm,
obviously, the trainings like the platforms like Enable Academy will give them a lot of knowledge, courses, all of that depth understanding of how to say, get ready for a job and all that. But in our training programs, we actually focus on building attitude.
mm,
Can you, we talk about, you are, say you are a deaf or a person with physical disability, spinal cord injury.
mm,
When you overcome your challenges, can you start thinking about how you can contribute to the society? So, in our training programs, we say the 40 hours of mandatory community work.
mm,
People say, what? I am blind. How will I
mm,
contribute? I say,
mm,
that's something you need to find out.
mm,
So people form small groups of their own, and they take up the causes that are close to their hearts and start contributing back. For example,
brilliant.
one of the batches in Kerala went to a government hospital and saw that the parents, not bringing children for vaccination because there is no breastfeeding booth or the cabin in the hospital,
Mm,
and they wanted to build that.
mm,
And they went to hospital and said, oh, we need money. Obviously government hospital, we don't have money.
mm,
So they worked and built a, this breastfeeding booth,
mm,
so that the young, parents can bring their young children for vaccinations. That
mm,
they did that. Somebody else took up a project of rescuing dogs. Somebody else
mm,
took up a project of teaching computer for transgenders, so on and so
mm,
forth. I mean, people will take up things. So it's shifting from, oh, I'm blind, I'm deaf, I'm this, to no, I am an active contributor. I am
mm,
taking charge. I am a volunteer. I am a change maker.
mm,
So this is another shift that we do in our
mm,
training programs, and
mm,
that's where all the academy or that you referred will come
mm,
into the picture to facilitate at scale. Obviously,
mm,
some courses need to scale, so it's not that everybody need to come to Enable India. So, like platforms like Enable Academy will take us to more people, but our curriculum, our nuance, it's all this again. These insights came from our past experience when we start placing people in different companies. I know about expectation, where we learned is one of our first placements with the deaf. We
mm,
placed the person. The company was very happy with the deaf, and first day he goes to work and he did well. Manager is very happy. Second day he doesn't go. The company manager calls us saying that why he has not come to us, why, what happened, anything wrong. Then we found out this guy is sitting at home and watching cricket match,
mm,
because he thought, oh, why should I mean, nobody told him that he has to inform. There's no expectation, right? So from childhood he was just, nobody isn't talking to at home, because all the communication to him is eat, sleep. That's all, right?
mm,
The parents are also not making communication because they don't know sign language. So there's no expectation, there's no conversation with them. So we build expectations, we prepare people to think beyond themselves,
brilliant. Okay.
right? So that's the real crux of our our programs, where then obviously, of course, you give all the things required to work in a company, getting them ready for a job. And we always say, don't get ready to pass the interview. Gain skills that will help you to progress in your job, like become a quality, quality conscious and things like that, right? And we do it beautifully with this lot of examples, very simple examples and scenarios. For example, we talk to deaf about quality. We show a, you know one very good banana and black looking banana, and say, which one do you like? Obviously people say, right, very yellow one nice, black bad, not good to eat. So, like this, therefore quality is important, right? in
Beautiful.
in, in jobs, so simple things. But I think the real pivot is preparing people for life than just a job.
So therefore, if I look at the if I look at the puzzle,
Yeah.
one is reaching the unreached, the other one is getting the stakeholders who can give them opportunities.
Yes.
The third is preparing the people who have reached with the right life skills so that they can be ready to be
Abs-
employed. Okay,
Absolutely.
and the fourth stakeholder is you need resources for all this. So
Absolutely.
how do you build your the donors and the supporters for an initiative like this?
Absolutely. So I think that's a very, very good question. So, I mean, for something like this in disability, we need donors who are willing to understand, right? So, obviously, when we work with different stakeholders like donors, we do, as much as they select us, we also select them based on the value match and so on and so forth. But I think, uh, so far, I mean, we make that effort to uh, co-create this again with the donor, saying that, hey, this is what it is and this is what we believe
Hmm.
works. And not just say agreeing to the, there are funders that we said no as well, to say, okay, I mean, you may be a great funder, but there is no alignment.
Hmm.
So then you got to be willing to say no when you need to say no, and work with people who'll understand you, who's willing to learn the depth, the complexity, and willing to invest in systems.
Hmm.
Right? It's not always about how many you train, how many you place. That's important, but in case like disability, we need to invest in the system, because I spoke about how healthcare industry has invested in systems, and therefore today they where they are, right? Like
Correct, correct,
we
correct,
spoke about
correct.
IGLA, yeah. So those are the things that we do with the donors. I think it's about how we communicate our own convictions. For me, a lot of times I say, I think there are a lot of good people out there willing to help. There's no doubt on that, and I can come across a very optimistic, but I'm saying with my own 15 years of experience in this space, there are a lot more people than we think who are willing to stretch that hand. It's about how we communicate, how do we put our perspective, and speak in the language that they understand, and bring them to the narrative shift that we want them to understand.
So
Right? So
therefore,
yeah,
so therefore, from a donor perspective, it's about not just the money, but it's about the value alignment.
absolutely,
And therefore, that's really when actually you are able to build the momentum for something
absolutely,
like this, right?
absolutely,
Uh,
absolutely,
the, the other interesting thing, Moses, I wanted to talk about is really the organization that works for all this, right? Because
absolutely.
I saw you are a great place to work. Okay,
Yeah,
so how do you build? How do you attract talent? Okay, especially in a place like say Bangalore, for example, you may be having offices everywhere, but when people are saying, you know what, I need the money. If you don't give me an increment, I will leave. I'll move to the next job. So, how do you attract talent and how do you ensure that you become the place to work for? Okay, so
absolutely.
how do you really see through this? People who want to work for Enable India.
That's again a very interesting question, and I think over the years, what we realized is organizations. I mean, everybody knows this. Organizations are made up of people, and in the sector like disability, we need people with the right amount of passion and skills both.
Hmm.
So we at Enable India always believe that we may not be able to pay like corporates big salaries, but we have to help them to realize their purpose,
Hmm.
right? and obviously have to pay them fairly good, because when we're talking about dignity, we have to talk about dignity of our staff,
mm,
because they can't be working on these complex challenges thinking, will my salary for the month be enough,
mm,
right? I mean, we make sure that there are a lot of other small things we do to be able to cater to. For example, we at Enable India, for example, have a welfare fund that can be given out to people, and
mm,
there is a committee again that's managed by staff themselves.
mm,
There are levels when the staff needs an access to
mm,
money. We do understand going to a bank and taking a personal loan can actually weaken your financial situation, right? So we do understand. So we have interest free loans and small things like that, so to make sure that there is a comfort. And we do constantly do the market surveys and benchmark ourselves with organizations where we kind of reasonably pay them well to make sure that we take care of dignity. But having said that, I think the real thing is nurturing the potential, nurturing the passion. I think aligning, when getting the right talent and is important. And at Enable India, we actually look at people who are humble, because
mm.
fortunately and unfortunately, the sector where we are in, we have to learn constantly. I can't say I have arrived. I worked as a CEO in an X company and I know how to work.
Mm.
So we are not in a very standard manufacturing company,
Correct.
right? Even manufacturing is complex. I'm just saying that
Correct.
to just simplify, right? I'm just using, for example, if you're just manufacturing bottles, water bottles, even there is a complexity now. How
Yeah.
AI is coming and then all that, but there's a process.
Yeah.
But
No,
here we are
but I think the point that you are making is the purpose comes before the job, right?
absolute.
And once I have an alignment of purpose,
Yes,
then the job needs to ensure that you are fairly compensated. So therefore we talked about the alignment of the talent
yeah,
uh, uh, in terms of their purpose, and therefore the job and the role, and hence the
absolutely.
compensation as a fair compensation for people. That's when this works, is what you are saying, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we invest in people, so there are many ways of making sure that the well-being of the staff are taken care, right? So
Mm.
there are programs that people can have access to mental health. I spoke about the interest-free loans. We encourage people to represent represent in different conferences and stay relevant, get opportunity to speak, uh, all of that. So I think all of this will really help people to see the purpose, and constantly they learn. I think that's another thing that we do at Enable India, is to make sure that there are enough challenges for people to keep
Beautiful.
aspiring.
So, therefore, if I were to summarize it, Moses, the way I am looking at it is the core and the central idea is the purpose and the mission,
Absolutely.
and that purpose and mission, will attract the unreached
Yes.
through community marketing, through user generated content, where you're actually building a certain amount of pull for
Absolutely.
the people who you want to support. Then you are
Yes.
actually educating the stakeholders who provide the opportunity. Therefore you are almost seeding the market, and
Absolutely.
therefore you're growing them, and that's the second stakeholder that you manage. The third stakeholders are people who want to contribute for the cause, so you invite them and start getting them in, and then getting them to see a difference. But then the value alignment is more important than the money, and therefore that is when cost related marketing can really work. And finally you look at people again, if they are not aligned to the purpose and mission, then you will not be able to get the best out of them. So all these are all the Lego blocks that you need to
Absolutely.
bring in to succeed in cause related marketing, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You put it beautifully. So the building blocks are that. Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. So when you look back, Moses, if you were to look at some learnings
Sure.
for marketers. What would you say, uh, is key if you want cost related marketing to succeed? If you were to say, what are the top three things that any
Sure.
marketer in a not for profit, if they are looking at doing this, what would you think are the three non negotiables that they should look at?
Absolutely. I think one is co-creation, because it's not something that we have the solution and you need to receive it. It's not that. So I think any marketing, if you want to take it to the masses in this development space, the solutions have to be co-created, right? I think second is that the lens of a marketing person to see these are consumers only, not contributors. I think that needs to change. A lot of times we push content or information or strategy from the perspective of what we think. But I think if we change that lens to how do I ensure my consumers actually can contribute? I know that's a slightly difficult to do, but I think that's what I as personally are going through the journey at Enable India, to see how each person with disability that we serve look them as a contributors rather than just as a receivers. And then your whole the way of working will change, because you'll start seeing more potential than what you otherwise think.
Okay,
And
fantastic.
yeah, and I think language builds culture. So I think focusing on appropriate language, and language always evolves as a human evolution happens. So especially in the cause like disability, I think when you are setting a narrative, I think using the right language is important. And I'm taking that and urging all the folks in the marketing field, because you have a great power of setting the narrative using the right positive line. Cause can be anything. Tomorrow it can be something. It can be women cause. It can be LGBTQI, or it could be anything.
Yeah.
But I think I will give an example.
Mm.
We actually work we are working on enabling visually impaired um, girls to be doing an early detection of breast cancer using the methodology called discovering hands, which is touch and feel method.
Mm.
So when we were talking recently, and somebody actually, then we were talking about how we do the early detection of breast cancer and all that. But one of the doctors told me that, Moses, I think we should talk about breast health in general, not
Mm.
just about only the what the girls would do screening.
Mm.
Then I understood it's about really that, like, if you can set the narrative about the breast health,
Mm.
screening has to happen automatically. So
Exactly.
don't push the solution what you have, rather understand what's the larger context that's really required for people. Then your
Beautiful.
solution might actually help. You have a solution of visually impaired girls doing screening. That's a solution perhaps. But I
No, no,
think,
beautiful,
yeah,
beautiful. I think what you're really talking about is, if you talk brand health,
breast
then
health, yeah,
sorry, if you talk about breast health, then the rest of the components automatically come together, and therefore build a platform for the purpose. And then the components come together, and that's really how you need to look at it, is what you are saying, right?
absolutely.
Brilliant, brilliant. So thanks, Moses. It was a very, very inspiring session. The work that you are doing is amazing. The way you touch people, the number of people whom you touch and change lives is commendable. And I'm truly inspired by this conversation. And thanks a lot for taking time and talking to me.
Thank you so much. I really enjoy what we do, and I think that's what taking us, helping us to do what we are doing. But thank you so much for the opportunity, and I think you are doing an important work of taking a message like this to the larger audience. Thank you so much.